So let's talk about the elephant in the Hollywood mansion, Tyler Perry. Yeah, that Tyler Perry, the billionaire, the media mogul, the man who built an empire out of nothing but drive, hustle, and a whole lot of Medea wigs. But now, he's not trending for his next blockbuster or another inspirational speech. He's in the headlines for something darker, something massive. A $260 million lawsuit that could shatter everything he's built. And it's dragging more than just his name. Into the fire, the ripples, they're hitting the British royal family, and Meghan Markle is caught dead center. Before we get into the chaos behind the scenes, make sure you're subscribed. This story's only just heating up, and what's coming next will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about Hollywood royalty and loyalty. It all begins with a name you probably haven't heard. Much Derek Dixon, he's no stranger to Perry's world. In fact, he worked on two of Tyler's biggest shows, Ruthless and The Oval. And now, he's accusing Perry of something huge. We're not just talking about a contract dispute or creative differences. Dixon's lawsuit paints a chilling picture of manipulation, coercion, and emotional abuse, all allegedly buried under the surface of Perry's media machine. Dixon claims it started in 2019, at a simple studio event. There, he says Perry approached him, exchanged numbers, and opened the door to acting opportunities. But soon, what seemed like a dream offer turned into something else entirely. The lawsuit says roles were dangled like bait, promises whispered, with unspoken conditions. If Dixon kept Perry happy, the roles stayed. If he didn't, characters died on screen. And sure enough, his character Dale was shot multiple times at the end of season 1. Coincidence? Or warning? And here's the kicker. Dixon says that wasn't just a script decision, it was punishment. A brutal message wrapped in fiction. Play the game or disappear. And if that sounds like a Hollywood thriller, remember, this is real life. Real names, real fallout. Perry's legal team of course denies everything. They call the lawsuit nothing more than a cash grab, a fabricated shakedown from a bitter actor. But even if the courts never rule against Perry, the public damage is already spilling fast. Because when someone like Tyler Perry, who owns every inch of his productions from script to screens, accused of this kind of behind-the-scenes manipulation, it raises a much bigger question. How much control is too much? Tyler Perry has long been celebrated for being a one-man production powerhouse. He writes, he directs, he produces. Sometimes he even stars. There's no middleman, no studio interference. It's all Perry. And while that kind of control made him a legend, Dixon's story now forces fans and critics alike to look at it another way. Could that control also make Perry unaccountable, untouchable? But just when you thought this was a Hollywood-only story, it explodes onto the royal stage. Enter Meghan Markle. At first glance, you might wonder, what does Meghan Markle have to do with any of this? But here's the bombshell. Tyler Perry isn't just a distant acquaintance. He's the godfather of Meghan and Prince Harry's daughter Lilibet. That's not casual. That's family. That's trust on the deepest level. When Harry and Meghan walked away from the royal family and landed in California, it was Perry who welcomed them with open arms, offering them his $18 million mansion, private security, and emotional support during their escape from the media hurricane. But now, that same man is the center of a lawsuit drenched in toxic allegations. And because of that close connection, Meghan and Harry can't dodge the fallout. Critics are already circling like vultures. They're not just asking what Perry did. They're asking, why did Meghan choose someone like him to be that close to her children? Why tie your legacy to someone now accused of coercion and abuse? And remember, this isn't just about image. When your godfather ends up in the middle of a $260 million scandal, the judgment isn't just public, it's personal. Rumors from palace insiders suggest Harry is furious. Not at Perry directly, but at the optics, at the headlines, and most of all, at the way Meghan continues to entangle their family with Hollywood players who carry explosive baggage. Sources close to the Sussexes say Harry's discomfort has been growing for months. This lawsuit is just the tipping point. There's even speculation, though. Nothing confirmed yet, that Harry is considering cutting Perry out of their family's inner circle entirely. Imagine that, revoking godfather status. It would be a massive move, and a clear sign that the relationship between the Sussexes and Perry is unraveling behind the scenes. And let's be real, this lawsuit isn't just inconvenient, it's radioactive. Derek Dixon's claims are the kind that make headlines for years, and whether they're proven or not, they stick. They shape narratives. They haunt reputations. For Meghan, this is especially brutal. She's already walking a tightrope. Her brand, once full of promise, has been battered by criticism. Over her Spotify deal collapse, the Netflix docuseries backlash, and accusations that she's chasing fame while Harry is craving privacy. And now, The Perry scandal feels like more of the same as strategic friendship that backfired. A connection that once looked like power now looks like recklessness. This brings us to the deeper issue, the growing divide between Meghan's vision and Harry's instincts. Asterisk from the start. Meghan has played the Hollywood game like a seasoned pro. She understands the currency of fame, connections, and curated public narratives. To her, aligning with someone like Tyler Perry wasn't just about safety or kindness, it was about strategy. He was powerful, respected, and symbolically important. As someone who helped her survive her most vulnerable chapter, but Harry, he's cut from a different cloth, raised in tradition, structure, and a legacy rooted in privacy and symbolism, not publicity and PR moves. What began as a unified front escaping the monarchy, speaking their truth, building a new life has started to fracture, insiders say. Harry is increasingly uncomfortable with how Meghan operates in Hollywood circles. The Tyler Perry lawsuit, with its unsettling implications, feels like yet another moment where Harry's concerns were brushed aside only for them to come back and blow up in public. And this isn't the first time, there's a pattern. Critics point to the Oprah interview, where the couple unloaded shocking claims about the royal family, and while the media frenzy was instant, so was the backlash. Then came the Spotify deal, which ended in flames. Then Netflix, where the couple's documentary was panned as overproduced and shallow. Each moment seemed designed to build Meghan's brand, but only served to further isolate Harry from both his British roots and public support. And now, with Perry under fire, the consequences have escalated. Meghan's critics say she's once again aligned herself with a powerful man whose reputation is imploding, and Harry is the one who's left cleaning up the image mess. Again, sources close to the couple suggest that this latest scandal has reignited old arguments about privacy, about parenting, about the kind of life they actually want to live. Meghan, according to these whispers, is ramping up for a full-scale rebrand. There's talk of a new Instagram launch, lifestyle deals, even more visibility. And while that might look like growth to her, Harry reportedly sees it as the very thing they ran from, a return to the spotlight that once destroyed his mother. And here's where things get really tense. The kids. Harry has been crystal clear he doesn't want Archie or Lilibet used as marketing tools. He doesn't want them performing for the cameras, becoming memes, or showing up on branded social media accounts. But Meghan, she's a hustler, a modern businesswoman, and to her, visibility isn't exploitation, it's opportunity. This philosophical clash is becoming impossible to ignore. Meghan wants to build an empire. Harry wants to build a sanctuary. And the Tyler Perry situation just sharpened that divide into something that feels permanent. Behind closed doors, sources say conversations have turned cold. The kind of cold that doesn't show up in public, but leaks through in the silences between appearances. Meghan, once praised for revitalizing the royal narrative, now faces the accusation that she's tearing it further apart through misaligned relationships, risky alliances, and a Hollywood playbook that clashes with everything Harry was raised to protect. And it's not just about Perry anymore. The lawsuit is becoming symbolic, a mirror reflecting Meghan's decision-making and the people she elevates. Perry, once the protector, now feels like a liability, and in royal circles, liability is death. Meanwhile, Harry is said to be exploring options that once seemed off the table. Quiet meetings with trusted UK confidants, discussions about attending royal events solo, even potential re-entry into public royal life, something unthinkable just a year ago. Whether that's out of loyalty to his family or a desire to reclaim his own identity is unclear. But what's certain is this: Harry is searching for clarity, for purpose, for a version of himself that doesn't feel lost in someone else's PR strategy. The Perry fallout has also emboldened critics of the Sussexes on both sides of the Atlantic. In the UK, royal commentators are saying, "I told you so," that Meghan's Hollywood instincts were always going to clash with royal dignity. In the US, even liberal media outlets are beginning to question the Sussex narrative, asking whether the constant drumbeat of controversy is a brand or a warning. Meghan, meanwhile, remains outwardly unshaken. She's always known how to weather public storms. She's calculated, resilient, but even her team is starting to sense the cracks. PR advisors are reportedly urging distance from Perry, quietly phasing him out of conversations, avoiding questions, and steering the press away from any godparent-related topics. But that silence, it speaks volumes, because in the age of social media and 24/7's headlines, what's left unsaid often makes the loudest noise. And here's where things go from complicated to downright combustible. Some insiders now claim Meghan was at least partially of Perry's more domineering behavior long before the lawsuit broke. If true, that's not just poor judgment, it's damage control waiting to explode. Because if the public starts believing Meghan turned a blind eye to alleged abuse for the sake of staying close to power, her entire narrative of empowerment and advocacy could come crashing down. Asterisk for someone who built her image on female empowerment, mental health awareness, and protecting victims of systemic power, the optics are brutal. You can't speak at women's conferences and then stay silent. When your inner circle is accused of weaponizing their influence, you can't sell yourself as a modern mom, redefining motherhood, while the godfather of your child is entangled in a lawsuit involving emotional coercion and psychological warfare. The contradictions are too loud, too visible, and they're starting to peel away at what little public goodwill Meghan and Harry have left. And that's what makes this moment feel like a crossroads. Not just for Perry, not just for Meghan, but for Harry too. For their family. For everything they've tried to build since walking away from Buckingham Palace and into the bright, unforgiving glare of California sun. At the heart of this is a question Harry is said to be asking more and more. What are we building? Is this really the life he envisioned for his kids when they left the monarchy? A life where their names are dragged into lawsuits, their godparents become headline fodder, and their home feels less like a sanctuary and more like a PR battlefield. The Perry scandal may have started as a legal dispute between two men in Hollywood. The consequences have torn into the fabric of one of the world's most watched families. And with every whisper from the press, every unnamed insider report, and every awkward silence from Meghan and Harry's camp, the divide becomes harder to ignore. There's no official statement yet. No on-camera apology, no photo op to smooth over the damage, but what we're watching in real time is a reckoning. A test of what happens when carefully built images collide with uncontrollable reality. Because Tyler Perry's empire might survive this lawsuit. He's survived criticism before. He's powerful, rich, and legally armed. But for Harry and Meghan, their brand is more fragile than ever. It's built not on legacy, but on narrative. And once that narrative starts to fall apart, the collapse is quick, public, and unforgiving as the headlines continue to swirl. As legal documents are picked apart line by line, the question everyone's asking is the same. What happens next? Asterisk, what happens next for Tyler Perry could be decided in a courtroom. But what happens next for Meghan and Harry? That's being decided right now by public perception, by royal silence, and by the choices they make behind the scenes. If Harry does move to remove Perry as godfather, it will be a seismic shift. Not just a personal decision, but a signal to the world that the Sussexes are attempting to course correct, that Harry is reasserting himself, reclaiming his voice in a dynamic that many say has been tilted in Meghan's favor for too long. If Meghan continues her push into social media, brand building, and high-profile partnerships, despite the growing tension with Harry and the mounting public criticism, it could cement the very narrative she's been fighting to avoid that. She's more Hollywood than humanitarian, more brand than royal, more strategist than spouse. The truth? They're trapped between two worlds, royal and celebrity, legacy and reinvention, dignity and spectacle. And with every scandal, every viral headline, and every uncomfortable silence, that tightrope walk gets shakier. This Tyler Perry lawsuit wasn't supposed to involve them, but it does. Because that's what happens when you live in the spotlight. You don't get to choose which headlines stick and which ones fade. You don't get to control the narrative once it spirals, and now, with their family, their brand, and their legacy all under fire, they have a choice to make. Because this isn't just about who Tyler Perry is. It's about who Meghan and Harry have become. If you're still watching, you clearly see how deep this story goes in, how much more there is beneath the surface. So make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because this saga isn't over. The next chapter could change everything, and if you have thoughts on the Perry lawsuit, the Sussexes' role in this storm, or how you think they'll respond, drop them in the comments. We're reading every one. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and stay watching.